Hello, everybody. In today's podcast, we are going to talk about Islamic mysticism, and I would like to quote from a very important treatise on Tasawwuf. It's called The Testament to the Disciples by Al-Qasim Al-Qushayri. Um, I will quote integrately from the text so you can have an idea of the most important treatise on perfection from a master to his disciple and how he should conduct himself. And I would like to quote the words of introduction by Professor Karl Ernst, PhD. He's expert in Islamic mysticism, and he says the following. One of the cornerstones of the Sufi tradition was the master-disciple relationship, which over time was a means of ensuring that the spiritual blessings given to the Prophet Muhammad would continue from generation to generation. This relationship is probably the most important topic of Sufi handbooks. A good summary of it is contained in the appendix to one of the most famous of all treatises on Sufism, the Testament to Disciples, at the end of the epistle of Al-Qasim Al-Qushayri, who died in the year 1074, meaning in the 11th century. Al-Qushayri, he was a native from Iran, and he wrote in Arabic, and his treatise gave brief biographical sketches of the early Sufi masters, along with detailed descriptions of the spiritual states and stages of the Sufi path. So, without further delay, let's get into the text and let's learn to what this master of Tasawwuf have written and left for the generations to follow, the most important compilation on the teachings from a master to his disciple. So, just like this, The Testament to Disciples by Abu Al-Qasim Al-Qushayri. The master and teacher Al-Qushayri said, when we set forth a portion of the path of the Sufis, and we added to that several chapters on spiritual stations, we wanted to conclude this treatise with points of advice for disciples. We hope that God Most High will assist them to apply this successfully, that He will not prevent us from setting them forth, and that He, glory be to Him, will not make them a test for us. The first step on this path for a disciple should be in sincerity, so that his foundation will be set on a correct principle. For the masters have said, union with God is prevented only by neglect of principles. Likewise, I heard the master Abu Ali al-Daqqaq saying, it is necessary at the beginning to have correct faith between him and God Most High, so he is purified from fancies and doubts, is emptied of error and innovation, and abandons logical demonstrations and proofs. It is detestable for a disciple to be connected with a legal school not associated with this spiritual path. The connection of the Sufis is not with one of the competing schools, but with the Sufi path, except when they are ignorant about the teachings of this path. For the Sufis' proofs in answer to questions are clearer than the proofs of anyone else, and the basis of their teachings is more powerful than the basis of any other school. Ordinary people are either custodians of tradition and text, or else experts at thought and reflection. The masters of Sufism go beyond all this. What is hidden to ordinary people is evident to them, and what is an object of study to ordinary folk is for them discovered directly from God. Glory be to Him. They are the people of union, but ordinary folk are the people of reasoning. During the entire Islamic era, there has always been a master of Sufism who possessed the science of unity. At all times, under the leadership of the Sufis, the leading scholars of the age have submitted to the master, humbling themselves to him and asking his blessing. The principles of the Sufi path are the most correct principles. Their masters are the greatest of men, and the Sufi scholars are the most learned of men. Therefore, If the disciple who has faith in the Sufis is a wayfarer progressing toward their goals, he shares with the Sufis in the unveilings of the hidden that distinguish them. He should not be a hanger-on of someone who has left Sufism. If he aspires to follow the path and has no particular spiritual state, but desires to ascend to the homelands of tradition until he reaches realization, let him follow the tradition of his forebears and pursue the path of Sufism. They are more important to him than anyone else. When the disciple is establishing the covenant between himself and God, it is necessary for him to acquire knowledge of the religious law, either by experience or by asking the masters what is required of him. If the decrees of the jurists conflict, he takes the most comprehensive approach, with the purpose of avoiding conflict. But dispensations in religious law are for the feeble, the needy, and the preoccupied. Sufism has no practice but reliance on the truth of God. Glory be to him. Therefore, it is said that when the seeker declines from the stage of reality to the dispensation of religious law, his covenant with God is abolished, and the covenant establishing his relation with God Most High is destroyed. Thus, it is necessary for the disciple to study with the master. If he does not have a master, he will never succeed. Abu Yazid said, "One who has no master has Satan for a leader." I heard the master, Abu Ali, say, "The tree that grows by itself without a gardener puts forth leaves, but it does not bear fruit. Similar is the disciple who has no master from whom he can learn his path, one breath at a time. He remains a worshipper of his own desire and does not attain success." Then, after all this, if one still desires to be a wayfarer, it is necessary for him to turn back to God, glory be to him, and to turn away from every sin. He must give up all sins, both, both open and hidden, great and small. He strives to satisfy his opponents first, for one who does not satisfy his opponents will not receive anything from this path. If one wants to abandon attachments, the first step is to abandon wealth, for wealth makes one incline away from God. Every disciple who enters this mystical enterprise with a worldly attachment finds that this attachment pulls him to the opposite direction. But if he abandons wealth, then abandoning power is also necessary, for even a moment of love of power is a great obstacle. It is not a matter of indifference if the disciple is accepted by the public, though their rejection is of no consequence. Rather, the thing most harmful to him is if people give him attention with total confidence, and they see his blessings for the poor because of this reputation. Since he has not been correct as a disciple, how can it be correct to seek his blessing? Abandoning power is necessary for the wayfarers, since power is a violent poison for them. When one abandons wealth and power, then it is necessary to return to the correct covenant with God Most High. And one should not oppose his master in anything that he is told, because the disciple's opposition at the beginning of his career is gravely harmful, for his beginning state is an indication of his whole life. And when a master leads someone, it is necessary to instruct him in the formula of recollection that the master sees as appropriate for him. The master orders him to recite that name of God with the tongue. Then he tells him to put his heart into harmony with his tongue. He says to him, "Persist in continuous recitation at this as though you are eternally with your Lord in your heart, so that no other name but this will be on your tongue or will be possible for you to say." Then he orders him to be always in a state of external purity, to sleep only when necessary, and gradually to reduce his food little by little until he can withstand that. He does not order him to abandon his habits all at once, for a tradition of the Prophet states, "The reckless rider who rides an animal to death covers no ground and retains no mount." Then he tells him to choose seclusion and isolation, and in this state he begins his efforts to deny the worldly thoughts and concerns that occupy the heart. Know that, in this state, the disciple who is free from misgivings in his belief at the times of seclusion in the beginning of his discipleship undoubtedly has an intelligent heart. Indeed, there are few disciples who fail to encounter such misgivings at the beginning of their discipleship. This is one of the tests that the disciples face. If the master sees intelligence in the disciple, he should assign him to study intellectual proofs from theology, for religious knowledge undoubtedly purifies the knowledgeable person from being overpowered by misgivings. If the master intuitively perceives that the disciple has strength and perseverance on the path, he orders him to continue patiently with recitation of God's name until the lights of divine acceptance shine in his heart and the suns of union dawn in his conscience. That will take place soon, but this only occurs with a few disciples. Generally, the remedy for their problems is through rejecting theoretical approaches. Study of scriptural passages for the acquisition of knowledge of juristic principles depends on the level of need appropriate to the disciple. If God desires good for a disciple, he confirms it at the beginning of discipleship. If God desires a bad end for a disciple, he returns him to the profession or condition that he had departed from. If God desires tribulation for a disciple, he drives him away to abodes of exile. It is very harmful to the disciple of medium ability if he joins the faqirs and companions while still a beginner. If anyone is tested in that fashion, however, he should take the path of respect for the masters, serving the companions, abandoning opposition to them, relying on what pleases faqirs, and striving not to trouble the master's heart. Whenever he is in the company of faqirs, he should only oppose himself and never oppose others. He should see that every one of them has an obligatory right over him, and that none has an obligation to him. The disciple should not contradict anyone, and even if he knows that he is right, he is silent. He acts in agreement with everyone. If the disciple is prone to laughter, stubbornness, or contentiousness, it will do him no good. If the disciple is with a group of faqirs, whether on a journey or at home, it is not proper for him to contradict them openly, neither when eating, not, nor when asking, neither at rest nor in motion. Rather, he may contradict them in his conscience and his heart, for he entrusts his heart to God, who is great and mighty. If they invite him to eat a bite or two, he does not permit his carnal soul to desire it. It is not part of the ethics of disciples to perform numerous litanies, for the Sufis are occupied clearing their minds of thoughts, remedying their character, and banishing heedlessness from their hearts, not with repetitive acts of piety. What is indispensable for them is performance of both religious duties and optional practices, but continuous recollection of God's names is more perfect for them than additional optional ritual prayers. The chief possession of the disciple is forbearance with everyone, good nature, meeting whatever he encounters with satisfaction, patience during suffering and poverty, and giving up questioning and resistance, both in the dearth and the abundance that are one's lot. And whoever cannot endure that should go to the market, for whoever craves what the people crave should attain his desire the same way the people do it, by the labor of the hand and the sweat of the brow. If the disciple continually practices recollection and chooses seclusion, and if he experiences in his seclusion what no one has previously experienced, either sleeping or awake, or between waking and sleeping, such as hearing voices, or witnessing something out of the ordinary, he should have nothing to do with it. He does not dwell on it, nor should he look forward to attaining similar things. All such things are distractions from God. Glory be to him. In such situations, he should undoubtedly describe these experiences to his master so that his heart will be free of it. It is necessary for the master to protect his disciples' secrets and to conceal his business from others, making little of it in itself. These are all tests, and dwelling upon them is a deception. Let the disciple beware of this and of paying attention to it, and let him aim his ambition beyond that. Know that the most harmful thing for the disciple is to seek familiarity with these deceptive tests of God approaches to him that he encounters in his conscience, and God's gift to him of saying, I have distinguished you by this, and I have singled you out from your peers. If he decides to abandon this, he soon will be caught up by one of the real unveilings that will appear to him. But to explain all this by relying on books is impossible. One of the duties of the disciple is that if he does not find someone to teach him in his own locality, he should travel to someone who is authorized to train disciples at that time. Then he should stay there, not moving from that master's threshold until given permission. The disciple should not believe that the masters are infallible, and he should leave them and their spiritual states alone. He should think well of them and mind his own business with the help of God Most High. Religious knowledge is adequate for distinguishing between the praiseworthy and the defective. If a disciple is afflicted by power, fame, association with boys, inclination toward women, or dreams of fame, and there is no master to guide him to an expedient solution that can free him from those problems, in such circumstances it is lawful for him to travel and depart from that place, since this condition disturbs him. Part of the ethics of the disciple is that one's knowledge regarding this path should not outstrip his station. If one studies the lives of the Sufis, one should not try to understand their issues and their spiritual states without living experience and practice after reaching these spiritual realities. On this account the masters have said, if the knower of God speaks of things of which he is ignorant, reports of spiritual stations are not the same as knowledge of them. One who chooses or one whose knowledge is superior to his spiritual stations is a scholar, not a mystic. Another part of the ethics of disciples is that they do not seek to put themselves forward or to have a student or a disciple of their own. If the disciple becomes a master before his human nature is pacified and before his faults are extinguished, he will be veiled from reality, and his allusions and teachings will benefit no one. It is incumbent upon the disciple, if his path is service to the fakirs, that he should patiently bear their rough treatment of him. If he believes that he is expending his life in serving them, and then they do not praise him for anything, he should beg their forgiveness for his shortcomings. He should remain firm in attacking himself while staying in harmony with them. I heard the Imam Abu Bakr ibn Furak using a metaphor. If you can bear the blow, why become an anvil? The foulest quality in a disciple is to return to a desire that he has abandoned for the sake of God Most High. It is incumbent on the disciple to preserve his vows to God Most High, for if the vow is broken in the path of discipleship, it is similar to the outright rejection of religion among the followers of the external. It is incumbent on the disciple to have little hope, for the Sufi is the son of the moment. And if he has a responsibility in the future, and if he becomes aware of something other than the present, and if he is hopeful of something that he is beginning, it will be of no use to him. It is incumbent on the disciple to keep a distance from worldly people. Association with them is dangerous poison. They make use of him while he is injured by them. God Most High said, "Do not obey one whose heart we have made forgetful of our remembrance." Quran 18:28. The master and Imam Abu Al-Qasim Abdul-Karim ibn Hawazim Al-Qushayri, may God be pleased with him, said, "This is our testament to the disciples. We ask generous God to grant them success and not to place any evil upon us."